You leave one toxic relationship behind, catch your breath, and promise yourself that next time will be different.
But then it happens again. The faces change, the names are new, but the pattern is hauntingly familiar. You find yourself back in the same cycle of high-intensity passion, followed by devastating emotional lows.
You start to wonder if you have a magnet for chaos buried inside you, or if you are simply cursed to only feel a spark with people who eventually break your heart.
You sit alone at night, scrolling through old messages, asking the ceiling why you keep picking the same lock that leads to the same burning building. You feel exhausted, broken, and perhaps a little bit ashamed.
You might even start to believe that you are the problem, that there is something fundamentally unlovable about you that attracts people who treat you like an option rather than a priority.
But stop right there. You are not a magnet for broken people, and you are not broken yourself. Your brain is not malfunctioning. It is actually performing a very specific, though painful, survival mechanism. What you call bad luck is actually a psychological phenomenon known as repetition compulsion.
This is not your destiny. It is a biological echo of a past that is trying to be heard. Today, we are going to look into the mirror of your relationships and identify the 3 specific psychological blueprints that keep the door open for the wrong people.
By the end of this, you will realize that your greatest vulnerability is actually your greatest power in disguise once you learn how to aim it. Let us look at the first group of people who find themselves in this loop. We call them the fixers. If you are a fixer, you possess an incredible amount of empathy, but it is empathy without a boundary. You walk into a room and you do not look for the person who is stable and calm. Your eyes are drawn to the person in the corner who looks a little bit lost, a little bit broken, or a little bit misunderstood. To your brain, a healthy person feels boring because there is nothing to do, but a person with a chaotic life feels like a mission. This is where the neuroscience of the savior complex kicks in. When you help someone, when you listen to their trauma for hours, or when you stay up all night trying to solve their problems, your brain releases a massive surge of dopamine.
You feel a sense of purpose.
You tell yourself that if you can just be patient enough, kind enough, or sacrificial enough, you can transform them into the person they are meant to be. But here is the cold truth. You are not falling in love with a person. You are falling in love with their potential. This creates an addictive cycle. Every time they show a tiny bit of improvement, you get a hit of hope.
When they inevitably slide back into toxic behavior, your cortisol levels spike, creating stress that keeps you hyper-focused on them. You become an emotional gambler, putting more and more of your soul into a slot machine that never pays out. You become a background character in your own life, orbiting their chaos like a moon around a dying planet.
Then we have the second group, whom we call the echoers. This is a deeper, more silent struggle. Your brain has a built-in map of what love is supposed to feel like, and for many, that map was drawn in a childhood where love was inconsistent. This is where we see the amygdala, the brain's alarm system, at work. For an echoer, a healthy, stable partner feels foreign. When someone is kind, consistent, and respects your boundaries, your brain might actually scream that something is wrong, or that there is no spark.
But when you meet someone who is unpredictable, your brain relaxes. It says, I know this. I know how to survive this.
This is the mechanism of repetition compulsion. It is a biological attempt to master a past trauma by reliving it in the present. Every time a toxic partner ignores your texts or gaslights your feelings, it triggers a familiar cocktail of stress hormones.
You confuse the high-wire act of anxiety for the heat of passion. You think the butterflies in your stomach are love, but they are actually your nervous system signaling a state of high alert.
The third type of person is the one who has been hiding a secret strength all along. This person is the empathic guardian. They do not see the massive emotional engine required to hold that much space for another human being. This capacity for deep, unwavering empathy is not a defect. It is a superpower that has simply been calibrated to the wrong frequency. Think about the sheer power of a heart that refuses to give up on the light inside of someone else. Think about the energy it takes to absorb the shock of another person's chaos every single day. Think about the mental agility required to predict their moods, to navigate their minefields, and to maintain a sense of hope in a desert of emotional neglect. This is not the behavior of a victim. This is the behavior of a survivor with a level of resilience that most people could never imagine.
The empathic guardian possesses a heart like a high-performance sports car, capable of reaching speeds of emotional depth that others cannot even comprehend. The problem is not the car. The problem is that the car has been driving on a road full of glass and nails.
When the perspective shifts, the entire world changes. That sensitivity is actually a precision sensor. It is a biological sonar system.
Right now, this sonar is being used to find reasons to stay in toxic environments.
But once the empathic guardian realizes their own value, that sonar becomes a weapon of radical self-protection. Imagine a moment of complete stillness. A toxic partner begins their usual routine of manipulation or blame.
In the past, the response would be to lean in, to explain, to fix, and to beg for understanding.
But in this new version of the story, the empathic guardian does something revolutionary. They stand perfectly still. They watch the words fly past like arrows that no longer have a target. They feel the heat of the other person's anger, but they do not let it ignite their own soul. In this slow-motion moment, the empathic guardian realizes that they are the one holding all the power. The toxic person is a storm, but the guardian is the mountain.
The storm can scream and rain and strike with lightning, but the mountain does not move.
The mountain does not need the storm to approve of its existence.
The very sensitivity that allowed toxic people to enter is the same sensitivity that will eventually make them irrelevant. When the filter is repaired, when the eyes are opened, the empathic guardian becomes the most dangerous person in the room to anyone with bad intentions. Because a person who can see the truth behind the mask and chooses to walk away without a single word of explanation is a person who can never be controlled again.
The journey was never about learning how to be tougher or colder. It was about learning that the warmth was a gift that only a select few deserved to sit by. The brain of an empathic guardian is rich with mirror neurons, cells that allow one to feel what another is feeling.
This is why the pain of a partner feels so personal. But there is a secondary mechanism called cognitive empathy. It is like putting on a pair of high-tech goggles that allow the wearer to see the infrared heat of a predator without being burned by it.
They can see the trauma that drives a toxic person's behavior, but they no longer feel the need to be the sacrifice that saves them. This transition is beautiful and terrifying. It feels like waking up from a long, heavy dream. The empathic guardian looks in the mirror and does not see a victim of bad luck. They see a warrior who has survived. Think back to the metaphor we discussed earlier. Your mind is like a beautiful sunlit room, and your boundaries are the window screens.
For a long time, you might have felt like your screen was torn. You watched as the cold wind and the stinging insects of toxic behavior flew right in.
But the room is not the problem. The openness is your beauty. The light is your soul. The only thing that was missing was the maintenance of the screen. To start this process today, I want you to try one tiny micro step. We call it the 5-second pause. In that silence, ask yourself one question. Am I doing this because I want to, or because I am afraid of what will happen if I don't? This tiny gap is where your freedom lives. This is where you begin to stitch the tears in your screen.
You are Koi Kung, giving yourself the same level of care and obsession that you used to give to everyone else. You are moving away from the survival of the past and toward the flourishing of the future.
You are learning that you are worthy of a love that is consistent, a love that is safe.
Always remember, you are not broken or defective. You are a masterpiece in progress.